Action.
Hello, I'm Martin O'Toole with Selective Fire Limited. I'm here to talk about, I'm going to dispose of some of my collection of firearms, and so I can't quite let them go without immortalizing the moment in digital. So one of the guns that's going to go away is my Vigneron M2 Submachine Gun. The Vigneron M2 is a post-World War II submachine gun, fires 9mm from a 32-round magazine, very similar to the German Mp38n40. We'll talk about that in a few seconds. But the Vig is a composite of several interesting and successful designs of other weapons, which we've got some of them here to show you the similarity between them. This was designed by Colonel George Vigneron. It was adopted by the Belgian military about 1952 or 53. This particular example was made in 1959. And it went to the Belgian Congo as part of the Force Publique. And it has stamped on the magazine well here, 1959, and FP for Force Publique. Which brings us to the interesting story of how this gun came to the United States. My church had supported a medical missionary named Dr. Paul Carlson, who was murdered by the communists in 1964. The medical missionary who brought this gun back was a resident of Orange, Texas. Apparently he decided not to be a martyr, and came back to Orange with his Vigneron submachine gun. Where he got it from, we don't know. But he gave it to the police department. I first saw it there in 1974, and then in 1982 the new police chief traded it to me and told me the story behind it, which was that he brought it back from the Congo. Once he got back to the United States, he didn't know what to do with it, so he gave it to the police department. And then they registered it during the amnesty, 1968, to the department. So it was available to be transferred and go on to the commercial market. But it's been 39 years since it was transferred, so it's time to go into the commercial market again. Well, Vigneron went and he designed, by the way, Vigneron, this is the only gun that he's known to really have any design work with, but he went and took a number of good ideas from other weapons, and it's sort of interesting to see what all he put together. It has a finned barrel with a built-in cuts compensator, which is obviously derivative from the Thompson submachine gun, which has its externally fixed cuts compensator with its finned barrel. That's found on the 21 Thompson, the 28, 27, 28A1, not on the M1 or M1A1. The barrel is affixed to the receiver by a screw-on nut here, very much like the German Mp38 or 40 here. One inferior point of the Belgian design is, unlike the German Mp38n40, you can put the barrel on upside down, and if you look up on the internet you'll find some stories, including everybody seems to like to mention the picture of the IRS terrorist who's standing with a Vigneron who's got the sight upside down because you can mount the barrel upside down. So obviously, as one person commented, the IRA doesn't know a whole lot about Belgian weapons or how to use them. They have a cocking handle here with a dust cover, which seems a derivative from the Beretta. And then we have here this dust cover, which, let me demonstrate this. When you pull the bolt forward, when the bolt goes forward, the dust cover opens up. So this and the stock are very much like the M3 grease gun or the M3A1 grease gun, which of course has a dust cover, which can be used as a safety as well. And their stock can be used as a cleaning rod and the like. The Vigneron has loops here to put your cleaning rags through there, and on the other side you have a receptacle to screw in your cleaning brush. You can set the stock at 3 different levels, and you can even fire the gun without the stock on it whatsoever. It has a grip safety like the 1911 Colt, and of course it has its own selector here on the side for a semi-full and safe. The interesting thing I was going to mention before about the magazines is, Robert Frost says that good fences make good neighbors. The Belgians and the Germans apparently didn't have real good fences because the Germans came visiting a couple of times in a 25-year time period, much to the dissatisfaction of the Belgians. So when this gun was designed and adopted in the early 50s, just in case the Germans decided it was time to have a little march westward again, they copied the magazine largely, virtually identically, but you'll find that while the Vigneron magazine fits very nicely into the Vig, it will not go into a German Mp38 or 40. It's too large. The Mp38-40 magazine, of course, goes easily into the Mp38 and 40, but if the Belgians happen to capture a supply of German magazines, they go in without a problem into the Vig. There are some websites that say they don't fit. Well, I don't know. Maybe every other Vigneron doesn't fit, but mine, the Schmeiser magazine, fits in real nice. Not a problem. So shoots real controllably and has a plastic grip down here. The M1 Vigneron is a little different. It doesn't have a cover over the sight here, and the rear sight is different. But by and large, other than that, it's pretty much the same gun. The other thing we're going to try to do today, I was reading just the other day that apparently on automatic the trigger can be regarded as progressive like the MG34. I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll find out when we shoot it in a little bit. So at any rate, it's a hot July day here in Georgia, and so we will give the Vigneron a try with both Schmeiser mags and Vigneron magazines in a little bit. But it's a good interwar or post-war gun, probably pretty expensive to keep. The Belgians kept it in service until the 80s. It has shown up since then in places like the Irish, Northern Ireland in the time of troubles. The Portuguese have used them and stuff like that. But in America it's pretty rare because obviously we haven't been fighting any wars with or alongside the Belgians since 1952. And so we hadn't had many chances for these things to come back home. So it's a nice, fine little gun, and I hope it will find a nice home with somebody who appreciates it. All right, one of my friends says I said IRS terrorists instead of IRA terrorists. I'm not sure that they're that far apart. But at any rate, you know, I really did mean the Irish Republican Army, not our friends in Washington. So those of you in the Treasury Department, please don't come calling. Thank you. This is the markings on a Vigneron Submachine Gun magazine here. I only have M1 marked magazines. I have an M2, but I only have M1 marked ones. That's kind of interesting. But you can see here how closely it resembles the German Mp38 and 40 magazine here. It doesn't have a little cutout hole there on the back, but it looks like it might have had it at one time and then had it filled. Interesting little magazine.
Now I do.
This is the receiver markings on the Vigneron M2. You can see here that it's stamped FP for Force Publique and the year 1959, year of manufacture. Fairly low serial number. I don't know how many weapons the Force Publique got, but it's 924 on this one. The lower receiver here is plastic, which is, again, kind of a following up, shall we say, of the MP40, 38 and 40. So it's an interesting gun, and Belgian rampant lion here on the other side of the magazine well. So a very nice shooting gun, as we will shortly demonstrate. Well, this will be the shooting of the Vigneron M2 Submachine Gun. And let me put my ears on so I can save what's left of my hearing. And we've got two mags here. This is the Vig M1 mag, which we shall pull the bolt back to start with. Notice the dust cover flies open there. Yeah, you can have failures to fire on this if you don't fully depress the grip safety. So we'll see how it does. Progressive trigger, since it's obviously on full auto, and see if that article was correct. I actually don't know whether it's progressive or whether I'm just squeezing off the single shot, but at any rate, it is working well. So that's the M1 magazine there. And then, for purposes of demonstration and scientific inquiry, we have the Mp38 and 40 magazine. This is a BTE 42, properly waffen-amped and everything like that. we'll see how it does here. Well, I don't see any problem with that firing. So, at least as far as this gun is concerned, the information that the Schmeiser mag will not work in a Vigneron seems to be an old wives' tale. So. Well, I've had a complaint from part of my crew here that I was only firing 3-round bursts, and someone might be mistaken thinking that Colonel Vigneron had a 3-round burst control on there. So, we've got another Mp38n40 98E41. I'm just going to dump the whole magazine out. We'll see how controllable it is under these circumstances. Not very. Let's see. So I'm just going to dump the whole magazine out and we'll see what kind of controllability we have here. Did have a failure to feed properly there. By the way, this is older Norinco 9mm ammunition, so I don't know whether to blame the Belgians or our friends from China, but we'll see. Well, that concludes that magazine. Not bad.